And Nina's there, CJ. Our attorney's zooming
Oh,
in, so
yeah.
we're getting her to the appropriate spot in Zoom.
Is Nina on? Okay, very good. Then I will call our meeting to order. And let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic and state of the nation under God, indivisible. For all.
Okay, the first thing will be the roll call, please.
Valerie Lundy,
Present.
Jim Rumsey,
Present.
Vice Chair Nick Amagromby is
Absent.
absent. Kevin O'Neill
Present.
and Chairman Louis
Present.
Ramon.
Okay. The next thing will be the approval of the minutes. Have you guys had a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
I caught one little typo that TJ has fixed on it. No, nothing technical in there. If it's okay with you guys, can we have a motion to approve as written?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written from the April 17th, 2023 meeting.
For a second,
Second,
can you poll us?
Yep. Kevin O'Neill,
Yes.
Valerie Lundy,
yes,
Jim Rumsey,
Yes.
Louis Ramon.
Yes.
And for the record, it was the minutes from June 19th, 2023.
Right. Okay, for the record, the first item on the agenda that was initially published has been withdrawn.
It's being rescheduled to
Can be
December
rescheduled.
18th, 2023 at 6:30.
Okay. And then the one item that we have to look at is the variance request from the Victory Life Church for height variance was requested by Seth Emerson from the Kingdom Design Group, who's the applicant, and Legacy Title Holding Company, who's a property owner, and it is for a 5-foot variance from 30 foot as required by the municipal code to 35 foot to accommodate one 2-story church building for the Victory Life Church. The subject property is located north of the intersection of Highway 24 and Trout Creek Road in sections 23 and 26. It's also known as Gold Mountain. The address is 5955 Trout Creek Road, and it is an agricultural AG zone district. Now, just for information for the applicants, well, for anybody, if you wish, after we get through, to appeal our decision, you may do so. Those appeals have to be filed in County District Court in Teller County no later than 30 days from the end of the board meeting. Also, I want to remind you that in order to approve a variance request, we have to have 4 affirmative votes. Now, as I mentioned before we started, that a quorum, a minimum number of board members required to have a meeting is 4. That's what we have, so we can have that meeting. But that means our decision tonight would have to be unanimous in order to approve it. If for any reason the applicant wishes to withdraw or table the application to try to maybe have a larger representation on the board or whatever. You are free to do that at any time during the process until we get down to the voting time. However, I would say this, if we did have a subsequent meeting, if we did table this and then want to address it at a later date, in order to have our fifth member participate, we would have to start the whole process of the meeting over again to make sure everybody hears everything all at the same time. The other thing is, when we get to the public comments portion, I would like to try to hold those comments to about 5 minutes for each person. Please don't repeat what someone else has said. If you agree with someone else, that's great. Let us know you agree with them, but to try to keep things moving along, don't repeat everything. I think you know that. The staff, for the staff report and the applicant, will have 20 minutes if they need it to deliver their presentation. And I guess that's it. I read the case into the record. Is that good enough? Okay. Now, just to be sure with you guys here on the board, does anybody have any involvement with the case? Done anything that you feel would make it difficult or hard for you to render a fair assessment?
I have not.
I have not.
Anybody? There being none, okay, very good. Then I guess we can start with CJ, if you would give the staff presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So as stated, this is a request by Victory Life Church to approve a 5-foot height variance from 30 feet to 35 feet to allow for the construction of a new 2-story church building. The subject property is 66.37 acres in size and is located northeast of the intersection of Trout Creek Road and Colorado State Highway 24, as seen from the vicinity map on the left-hand side of the slide. On the right-hand side of the slide, you will see the subject property outlined in red and an arrow pointing towards where the proposed building site will be. In 2001, the owner of the property at the time, Mr. Gordon Jackson, and the city of Woodland Park entered into an annexation agreement for the subject property. Within this agreement, there is a list of conditions of annexation, and staff would like to specifically touch on one. Condition number 7 on that annexation agreement reads, "The petitioner agrees to protect the ridgeline and sloped areas above an elevation of 8,775 feet through the designated open space. The designated open space may be developed with structures which are considered to open space areas such as trails, gazebos, or sitting areas." Staff wanted to point this provision out and show you a zoomed in screenshot of the proposed site plan. As you can see of the figure on the right-hand side of the slide, the northern portion of the proposed building will be set at an elevation of 8,700 feet, which is outlined in red. The entire building will be under the 8,775 grade stipulation. On the left-hand side of the slide is a zoning map. As you can see, the subject property is zoned agriculture. For reference, a church can be sited in the ag zone district through a conditional use permit and a site plan review process, which will be heard by the Planning Commission and City Council. On the right-hand side of the slide is the comprehensive plan's future land use map. The northern portion of the subject property is labeled as open space, while the southern portion of the site where the proposed church would be constructed is labeled as mixed use. The plan identifies several areas as mixed use, and this site is associated with an Area B, which is defined as Area B is comprised of the approved Sturman PUD and Sanctuary PUD, which is Charis Bible College. The sanctuary PUD will have an event space, a cafe, educational facilities, and group quarter housing for students. Victory Life Church is requesting a 5-foot height variance to increase the allowed building height from 30 feet to 35 feet to allow for the construction of a new 2-story church building. Regarding the entitlement process, the applicant is seeking the height variance first, and the applicant has also submitted for a conditional use permit application that is currently within the staff review portion of the process. The current slide is the proposed site plan for the church and the southern portion of the site of the property. As seen from the proposed site plan, the site will be accessed off of Trout Creek Road. The current slide is a slope analysis map submitted by the applicant. The map encompasses the whole site. As showed here, each color indicates a different slope percentage that currently exists on the site. The color blue indicates the least amount of slope, which is 0% to 8%. And the red indicates the greatest amount of slope, which is greater than 25%. The slope analysis map indicates that a majority of the parcel has an existing slope of greater than 25%, specifically on the northern portion of the subject property. As I previously noted, and you can see here on this slide, the applicant is proposing to build the proposed church on the southern portion of the site. And as you can see here, the southern portion is predominantly orange, which depicts the slopes between 15% and 25%, which are still very significant slopes. Also existing on the site are utility lines associated with access easements, which reduce the access to building area. With the combination of the topography of the site and existing power lines, the applicant is claiming the development area within this parcel is approximately 6 acres in size. In order to accommodate the exceptional sloping of the topography of the site, the proposed building is planned to be built into the existing hillside and will include a walkout condition at the main entrance or the main level of the building. The applicant has submitted color renderings of the building elevations for the proposed church. On this slide, the top figure represents the southwest elevation and the bottom figure represents the northeast elevation. The applicant has called out the average grade with a thin red dotted line. Measuring from the average grade to the highest point of the roof, which is how the city of Woodland Park measures the height of structures, the proposed church would measure 35 feet in height to the tallest part of the roof. Additionally, the top figure on this slide is the southeast elevation, and the bottom figure represents the northwest elevation. On the bottom figure, the applicant has provided a dark dotted red line identifying the existing grade on the site in association with the proposed building location. The existing grade line illustrates the significant slopes found at the southern portion of the site. Section 18.60.020 requires the applicant to demonstrate how the variance meets all the following conditions. That special conditions are peculiar to the land. Staff found that special conditions do exist due to the significant topographical slope on the site. The most extreme topography exists within the northern portion of the site, which makes the portion of the parcel unbuildable. As previously mentioned within the staff report, the building is proposed to be constructed with the southern portion of the site where the slopes are not as steep, but still very significant. The special conditions do not exist from a result of the applicant. Staff found that the significant grade change as well as the existing power lines and easements on the site is a special circumstance and was not caused by the actions of the applicant. The provisions of the code would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. Staff found that the denial of the variance would likely deprive the applicant of the ability to construct a proposed church on the subject property. The parcel is zoned ag and churches are subject to a conditional use permit. The CUP is a public hearing process that must be heard before the Planning Commission and City Council. As previously noted, the applicant is presenting before the Board of Adjustment requesting a height variance prior to the conditional use permit process. Granting the variance will not confer any special privileges that is denied by the board. And if granted, the applicant will not receive any special privileges denied to other lands or structures. Section 18.60.050 of the municipal code states that no non-conforming structures in the same district or other districts should be grounds for a variance, and under no circumstances should the board grant a variance to allow a use that is not permitted. The limitation of these two sections are met since the proposed use is an allowed use within the conditional use permit, and no non-conforming use of the land has been used for grounds for analysis of this application. The BOA considers each application and grant or deny it according to the provisions of Code Section 18.60.040, which states that the representations of the applicant's application are valid. Staff found that the representations of the application are valid. A written application was complete with the fees that were submitted. Staff finds that the application demonstrates the existing of special conditions and circumstances peculiar to the land. Instead, staff bases this on the lot's extreme topography and the existing power lines and associated easements. That the reasons set forth in the application justify the granting of the variance that will make it possible for the reasonable use of the land or structure. Staff found that the justification provided by the applicant was sufficient for staff to recommend granting the variance as requested. With the significant grade change, the size of the variance does not exceed the hardships found on the site. That granting the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan in Title 18 zoning, and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to public welfare. Staff found that if granted, the variance will conform with the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive master plan. As shown on the comp plan's future land use map on a previous slide, the northern portion of the subject property is labeled as open space, while the southern portion of the site where the proposed church would be constructed is labeled as mixed use. All noticing requirements have been met for this application and was referred to the entities here on this slide. Per Woodland Park Code, APO letters were sent to property owners within 150 feet of the proposed site, and staff received no written public comments on this application. And with that, staff's recommendation is to grant a 5-foot variance to allow for a maximum building height of 35 feet for construction of a two-story church at 5955 Trout Creek Road. This concludes my presentation. We also have the applicant here tonight and I know he has a presentation as well.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff?
No.
I have one for clarification. Looking through the package, I noticed that one of the title documents from the county, or I guess it was the county, listed this as in a commercial zone. The map shows it in ag zone, as you said. Could you just confirm for me?
Yeah, so we can confirm that the zoning itself, that parcel is zoned for agriculture. But as far as what the title company puts as the use, we have no
You don't have
control
control
over
of that.
that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention, just for the board, make sure we're all on the same page on this. Although the applicant made an application a while ago for a 15-foot variance, we have to consider this on its own face value and not say that, well, okay, he came down from this to that. This is just, we have to look at this as a 5-foot.
Oh, wait a minute.
So,
There's
ahead.
one other, when I turned to that page, when I read this earlier, what building in this Teller County property records thing? There's a building ID number 1 and it says occupation, single family residential. Is that cabin thing that was there?
Yeah, so that's from the Teller County Assessor
Right.
site. Yeah, so there
There's
is
a little cabin there.
an existing
Okay,
structure
I
on
just wanted to
there.
make sure what that was.
Yeah.
okay, I would, if there's no more further questions or comments, I invite the applicant to make a presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for hearing our application tonight. Want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank the city staff as well for their help in reviewing the application and providing assistance throughout the process. So to begin, my name is Seth Emerson. I'm with Kingdom Design Group. I represent Victory Life Church in this application for the 5-foot height variance. We are the architectural firm hired by the church in the design of the building and taking into consideration the site conditions and the programming requirements from the church. We have put this presentation together for you to represent the design and the intent of the design to conform with the plans of the city and the aesthetic in general in Woodland Park here. So just starting off real quick here, get this to work.
Or not.
It was working just earlier.
It was
What they always say,
technology.
like fishing, they were biting yesterday.
Okay. So as CJ had mentioned earlier, we are zoned ag. We are one of 3 properties in Woodland Park zoned agricultural. The other 2 exist to the northwest of our property. And as CJ had presented earlier, according to the Woodland Park Comprehensive Plan of 2022, this particular piece of land falls within the ag zone, but the lower third is planned for a mixed use. I have a footprint of the building on that lower third of the property, the mixed use area, to show where the building actually sits on the site, that it is within that mixed use area and conforming to the future land use map. Here we can see a picture of the exceptional topography that we faced on this site. So the site is very steeply sloped. The 2/3 of the northern portion of the site is above 25% grade. The lower portion where the existing cabin is right now is the area we have identified as really the only buildable area on the site. So here is the grading plan, the slope analysis, showing the exceptional slope. The red, again, as CJ had pointed out, is 25% plus. Our total building site is 66.37 acres. We have an approximate 6 acres of buildable area to the south. That's the portion in orange and yellow. I've highlighted the area of 8775 feet according to the annexation agreement, that we are below that. 2/3 of the property is above that 8775 and approximately 1/3 below it. And here again is a representation of that elevation that from the annexation agreement. Our finished floor height is 100 feet below that. So 8675 is where our finished floor height sits. And so we are well below, even with the height of the building, we're 57 feet 6 inches below the limits of buildable area. Here's an aerial view of the site as it exists right now. You can see the existing buildings that are there, which represent our building site. And then here is our new building and the approximate 6 acres of buildable area that we have to work with. This lays out the parking and the building as well. You can see how it's really tucked in to the hillside and sitting where the existing buildings currently are right now. So some of the considerations we have in the design of these buildings, places of worship have some specific requirements. One of those is for the gathering spaces to be inspirational, also acoustically proportionate so that everyone can hear. And we have 3 different sanctuaries in the building: the main sanctuary, a youth, and a children's sanctuary that we all had to consider. And so our solution for this was really to build the structure into the site to lower it as much as possible. So that meant cutting into the existing slope. We wanted to also maintain the desired mountain western aesthetic here in Woodland Park. So we did that through the use of stone, heavy timber, wood siding, keeping a pitched roof. consistent with that mountain western aesthetic. So here is the original elevation we started with. I know the prior application really has no precedent, but we wanted to show you the effort we had made to reduce the building height from the last time we were before the board. So the original elevation, we had a total height from grade from finished floor of 55 feet. And then our new building elevation, you can see the dash line represents the old height. We've lowered the building 12.5 feet from the last time we were before the board in an effort to conform to the height requirements. Here we can see the northwest elevation on the top, the southwest elevation on the bottom. On the northwest elevation, we can see the existing grade and how we are cutting into that hillside pretty drastically. The intent is to create a retaining wall off of the back of the building, to create fire access for life safety purposes. So we really took another look at how we can improve not only on the design and the building height, but then also from a life safety standpoint. We wanted to create access around the whole building for fire trucks, also for egress and for daylighting purposes. Now we can get windows along the back of the building where in the previous design we were unable to. This also gets the retainage off of the building and reduces the amount of foundation that we need, reduces the expense of the building as well, and provides us an area in the back to tuck all of our mechanical equipment and hide it, so to speak, from sight, and use the building to hide all the mechanical equipment behind it. On the top here is the southeast elevation. On the bottom is the northeast, really the back of the building, where you can see that area that we've created of separation off the building with a retaining wall 20 feet away from the building, where we can house all of our mechanical equipment and also provide fire access. On the southeast elevation on the top, again, you can see really the slope and how we've stepped the building. The other thing we did too is the building is two-tiered. So we really stepped it into the hillside, and we went with we followed the contour lines basically. So that attributes to the shape of the building. And then here we can just see, again, the existing site, cell towers in the background. You can see how the building really just blends in. And our intent was really to keep it as low to the ground as possible, but also to provide the programming requirements that the church had as well. So the use of the different materials to blend it, cutting it into the hillside helped us to keep it down really low. And really to be sensitive to the topography, to the aesthetic, and to any views. Here we can see a view from Highway 24 looking eastward of the existing site. And so we have that soil now retaining wall along the frontage road. We have the cell towers, and now here you can see how the new building transitions. So you can see the proposed building on the same site, how it would be viewed from Highway 24. And then we have a short little video here to show you an overview of the site. You can see the retaining wall behind the building, how we've cut it really into the hillside, and how we've terraced the parking, how the building really just, it spreads out to keep it down as low as possible. Here you can really see that retaining wall, how it's cut into the hillside there. And so with that, I just want to thank everybody for the time tonight. Thank you for allowing us to present. I'm happy to receive any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one. I wasn't able to attend the initial meeting, for the very first variance. In order to, how, I saw the slide, how differently and how did you spread out the building in order to come with to where you're just asking for the 5-foot variance?
So the one thing we did was change the roof line over the sanctuary. That was really where we had the height. The height was being created there. So we created a second roof line over the front atrium and a separate roof line over the sanctuary. And we were able to lower it as much as possible, really, because we still have to maintain floor to floor heights and headroom. And a 512 pitch is really about the minimum we want to go to maintain that mountain western aesthetic. So really, we reduced it 12.5 feet from the last go around by creating a second roof line over the atrium and separating it from the sanctuary.
Thank you.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
I say, again, it's not part of the. I just looking at the differences from me, just from my own, it looks like you made the. Well, on this thing, I guess it's sort of kind of on the right side going towards back. So it's just a little bit longer too on that one side
Correct,
building.
correct. Yeah, so in order to make it shorter, we had to spread it
Yeah,
out a little bit.
That's that I figured.
Right.
I've got a couple of questions. One of them being, since you're having to cut in there and do that grading, what would have prevented you from cutting into the hillside another 5 feet to meet the requirement, meet the height requirement, not have to have a variance?
Well, and actually just cutting and lowering it 5 feet wouldn't have had any effect on the median grade. It's really a product of the median grade. So how the city calculates that, I'll let them maybe explain that a little bit more in detail, but just simply lowering the building on the site would not have lowered the median grade, which we're measuring off of.
I have trouble picturing that.
You will if you think about
Hmm?
it. You will if you think about it.
The other thing.
Yeah, maybe I'll let David, our civil engineer, address that a little bit better than I could.
Yeah, please, Dave.
Good. Good to talk to you guys. I'm David Mijares with Catamount Engineering. I'm the civil engineer for the project. So our original intent when we went through the redesign was to do, I kind of think, what you're picturing, which was to retain more earth on the rear of the building to provide a median grade that met the criteria. When we were going through that, there were a number of problems that came with that. First was recommendations from our geotechnical and structural engineers that height of retaining on the rear of the building was kind of a real consideration, that they'd rather see a kind of a life safety issue of pulling some of the retaining off of the building structure itself, so it's not, endangering the building. The other aspect of that was primarily fire access. So we have had to design a road that goes around the rear of the building to provide fire access for that. And, to raise that much through just the short length of the side of the building from the parking lot up to the rear wouldn't have met fire department access criteria for the grade of their roadways that they need to get a truck back there. And then the third consideration was, adding some light, and then also it provided an opportunity by bringing that retaining off the building, which really, if you look at existing grade, we are doing that much retaining to lower the overall impact of the building into the slope. But it provided an opportunity and a location for us to hide a lot of the mechanical units behind the building.
Now, in your impact assessment here, that was included, talked about what the impact would be if you wanted to maintain a 30-foot maximum height. And you said something about it would make it into a 2-story maximum building, and I guess I'm just wondering, looking at the elevations, if you lowered the peak of that roof, just bring that down so that the two highest peaks were level with the top of the where the student area is that right? The long area. What would that do to you
I'll
in
let
terms
Seth
of
speak to that.
hurting the building?
Yeah, so one of the things we had to look at was the floor to floor heights of the building that we are required. And then the head height on the upper level. So we've lowered the roof as much as we possibly can to maintain a head height that is adequate enough for the start of the slope. So we can't just lower the roof down because then we would lose headroom on the second floor and we would not have our floor to floor heights that we need to maintain for structural and mechanical considerations as well as head height
Well,
considerations.
I guess what I don't see is what I'm talking about lowering is if I look at the elevation here, that you're showing. And I lower the highest peak down to the same level as the rest of the building. And I'm not talking about changing the pitch, I'm just talking about that. What did that do? What does that do to you?
So that's where I'm, the head height on the inside. So if you imagine the roof is like this. And if you just lower it down, your head height is reduced at the ends where the structure meets the vertical walls, basically. So we've reduced that as much as we possibly can to create head height, proper head height at those second level of the building.
Okay, and I guess where, now I'm looking at in your package. Hard to see here, but the view of the inside of the church, and I don't see anything on a second, first and second floor. I don't, it looks like it's all pretty much one level with a step down. So can you help me?
Can I show this to you?
Yeah, please.
So here's a section to that area that we're talking about.
Right.
So here is the head height I'm talking about, in the balcony area over here. So if we just dropped it down, we would lose the head height of the door.
Uh-huh.
So we have lowered this as much as we can to create about a 10-foot head height, the starting point for this slope up to the second level. Just lowering this then eliminates our second floor. It destroys our head height.
You wouldn't have enough head height to have there
For
be
the
a balcony
balcony
there.
area.
That's,
That help visualize.
Yeah, that helps, because what I was looking at was just,
Yeah, and I don't think, maybe, I don't know what we got, but there is a second floor that shows the balcony area.
we did,
So
we didn't have.
we didn't see that in our package.
Okay, yeah, there is actually a second floor balcony area that's kind of over this section right now. It's represented here, you can see the city.
Yeah, that's why I didn't see anything up there, and that's why I thought the solution would be just to
I understand,
bring that down.
yeah.
Is there any way that we can get that on the screen and I simply, since it wasn't in the package, so that
I have
these
the,
folks here can see it?
I'm not sure what Seth just showed you. Was that the,
John will send it to you,
yeah,
the email.
perfect. Yep. And then, while we're waiting on that, let me just share my screen. Here, so I just pulled up the packet here that was posted on the website. So this is, we'll go here first. So this is the level 1 floor plan. So it's a little bit bigger. So this is the level 1 floor plan. And then the next page here was the children's level floor plan.
This is the area that stepped up 5 feet from the main area, how we're stepping it into the grade. But it doesn't appear like the second floor is on this packet that has the balcony area over the sanctuary, the main sanctuary.
Yeah, that the second floor was included within the CUP SPR
Okay.
application. But
Okay. John's emailing that to you right now, CJ.
Okay.
Wait a moment while technology catches up with us here.
And excuse me, Chair, while we do that, I'm gonna take advantage of this. I've got a couple of folks that have been trying to, actually, one person has been trying to put a couple of things in our Q&A, and for some reason, we typically have that disabled during a hearing, so it's unfortunate that it's actually functioning today. We will not respond to items in the Q&A that when we get to public comment.
Oh, okay.
These folks will have ample opportunity to bring their questions and concerns forward at that point in time. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then the same for hands that are raised at the moment. We will be calling for public participation, and at that point, raise your hands and we'll make sure we get through to everybody. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So this is the rendering that was just shared with our chairman here. So let me see.
See the road.
And what they were talking about is on the left of your screen for you folks sitting there. You can see that balcony area. And if you just, you were saying if you just lowered the trusses, the roof, you're not gonna be able to maintain enough height,
Correct.
or you're crowding it anyway. Over the door that's shown on the right-hand side of the balcony and an anteroom or whatever it is on the left side.
That's correct. And part of that too is because the balcony needs to slope. And so we had to have a certain floor to floor height
Right.
to allow for the sloping and then still allow for a decent ceiling height on the main level.
And a door that works.
Yeah, and a door that works is
Yes.
always a good thing too, right?
Helpful.
Okay, I understand. Anybody have any other questions? That being the case, thank you very much. And any questions coming back for staff?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we're gonna open this for public comment. Again, reminding you guys to try to keep it brief to the point, and if you agree with someone that said something before, please just say that. And I'm gonna go by the names in the order that they're on the list. Got a question. CJ, this list starts at number 11.
Yeah, I just printed off the.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, there's-
I'll
that's
ignore,
not
I'll
one.
ignore, I'll
Pay-
ignore
pay
the
no
first
attention
digit
to the
then.
numbers.
All right.
People was like-
Pat Urban, if you're here, would like to say something, would you please come up to the microphone? State your name,
Okay,
where you live, and then go ahead and tell us what you want to say.
okay, thank you very much. My name is Pat Urban, and I live here in Woodland Park. And I am a member of Victory Life Church. And I have to say that I am very excited about having a new building. Victory Life Church is actively involved in serving the Woodland Park community. And I'm proud to say that one of our services is providing our senior citizens at Forest Ridge Nursing Facility, like with Christmas gifts this season, so that they know that they're being thought of at this time. I belong to the women's ministry at Victory Life Church, and I'm excited because we are already planning ways to serve our community, to serve our veterans, our teachers, our first responders, etc. And you know, we need a building to expand on our ideas and our services. And what I'm excited about in seeing this rendering, the ours rendering, is that where the land is located, that the building is not going to obstruct any views. And we still have that, the pristine view of the mountain. And I just love that. So in saying that, I just want to say that, with a new building, that we will be able to do more for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. The next one on the list is Tom Urban. Tom? Thank you.
I welcome the opportunity. Thank you. Victory Life Church is committed to serving this community. I think we're all in agreement on that, and its community and all its citizens. The building will be an architectural complement to the landscape of the immediate area. That will and by no means inhibit any view of the surrounding, but rather enhance it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next, Laverne?
Was that?
And Laverne, would you help me? Because I can't read your writing. It's almost as bad as mine. What is that
I'm
last name?
sorry, but tell me what he said. I can't.
He's asking you.
Could you read your
Oh.
your last name?
Levon Atkins.
Atkins? Okay. thank you.
Yes. I just want to say that Victory Life Church is a benefit to this community to educate and provide leadership skills and social programs that build lives and unity. And they are going to provide fellowship with the people in the community and keep them from being isolated. So Victory Life Church does need a building to schedule their outreach programs, classes, and activities as needed, not just once a week on Sundays. So a building would be a great benefit for the community.
Thank you, Laverne. I appreciate that. Rick Christopher?
My name is Rick Christopher. We live here in Woodland. My wife and I live here in Woodland Park. We started attending Victory Life right after we graduated from Charis Bible College. And we went to Oklahoma, Durant, Oklahoma for our missions trip. That's where we really got familiar with Victory Life Church. And we got to see all the outreaches that they have there, the food pantry, the outreaches for older folks, for veterans, for just about everybody in the community. They had a girls' home for girls that needed a place to go that could be safe. They just had all kinds of different, like everybody said, outreaches to fit the community. And as soon as we got back here, we started checking them out, and that is our home church. It would be a huge benefit to have their own building. They would be free to do the outreach that they want to do. And it would be a huge benefit for the community of Woodland Park, I believe. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Galen Hipple?
Hi, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share. So I go to Victory Life Church, and it's been a real blessing to my husband and I. We feel loved and accepted there. We really enjoyed a recent marriage conference, and it increased our connection with one another. And we really believe that strong marriages build a strong community. And that's one really good aspect of Victory Life Church, is adding that kind of training and ministry for individuals, and it's free of charge. Anyone could come. It was really good. And Victory Life Church is like a family. And a lot of our church members often talk about how things will be better when we have our own building. And we're excited about that. That way we'll be able to do more trainings like this marriage conference we had and spend more time together and spread the love more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your name, please?
Kaylin Hippel.
Kaylin Hipple.
And you didn't say where you live.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I live in Woodland Park. Yeah, on Stone Park Lane.
Joshua Davis.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Davis. I live in Woodland Park. So I had the opportunity to visit a campus of Victory Life in Oklahoma and saw some of the stuff that they were doing there, and the impact they're having in their community where they're rooted was just next level, in my opinion. Drug heap rehab, homelessness, feeding the hungry. It's not just kind of we're helping people. This is like a tangible, measurable impact in the community. And I came here to speak tonight because I want that in my community. And I think to do this effectively, they're going to need a home. And the building was beautiful. So, I mean, it's a win-win in my opinion. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Or Joshua, I'm sorry. Kelly Strong.
I'm Kelly Strong. I live in Woodland Park. I've lived here for over 30 years. I'd like to speak to two things. First, one, I thought we were supposed to keep to the variance as what our comments were. So I'd like to reiterate or to ask if that's true.
Please.
And I will try to keep to that. I also wanted to ask, why was it so difficult for us to see the notice about this meeting? You had to practically hike up there. I had to use a pair of binoculars to see that the notice had changed. And I wondered, for future reference, if we could make that a little bit easier for the public to see. Thank you. So as I said before, I spoke at the last hearing. I've always appreciated the care the city and the county take to limit the ostentatious development, lighting and signage at both ends of Woodland Park on Teller on 24. These rules and care taken to enforce them have helped to maintain the character of Woodland Park and is the reason we're all here this evening. There are currently more than 25 churches in Woodland Park for 8,000 residents. If this variance is approved, it will set a precedent for all businesses, including non-tax paying religious organizations, who will now be competing for paying members or customers to sustain themselves. And they will likely ask for variances too, in order to compete. Gold Mountain is a natural gateway to the small city of Woodland Park. We're very lucky that Gordon Jackson donated the land with the vision to maintain it, the character of our town. This project and this variance to allow additional 5 feet to accommodate a non-tax paying entity is not in the best interest of this community and will only help to grow the non-tax paying entity requesting it, and not for the benefit of this community, but as a burden, especially as regards traffic and safety issues such as evacuations for fires and in general, the already growing traffic conditions, which they say they care about. But I noticed that they only want to stash their emergency equipment behind their building. There's no plan for evacuation since we're talking about other topics than the 5 feet. But I'm really hoping that you'll consider your community and consider your community and how all of this is going to impact us. I don't really see all of the things that the other people said, which seemed like very redeemable qualities, as having anything to do with this 5 foot variance and the impact. in the long run on this community. So I thank you and hope we can get to it.
Thank you, Kelly. I would also suggest, because you're gonna have to go to city council or planning.
Planning.
Yeah, so the conditional use permit and site plan review, planning commission and city council, which are both public hearing items.
And that is an appropriate place also, Kelly, to talk about concerns for fire and evacuations and things like that.
Yeah, it doesn't really,
All underneath us.
it's not, it's for what we have to say is okay, giving an extra 5 feet if that's the way we go.
Right.
It's the other things that you put out there, that's gotta go to planning commission when it comes.
Precedence for the 5-foot variance is huge for any variance, I think, in my opinion.
Julie Snyder?
Hi, I'm Julie Snyder. I'm a longtime resident, and I was the donor of this property from my father's estate to the Pikes Peak Community Foundation in 2007, and who recently sold the property to Victory Life. I was with my dad when he went through the annexation process in this very room 22 years ago. The restriction of no building height above 8,775 feet was gladly accepted because preserving the corridor view and maintaining the beauty of our community is important to us. The restriction was put in place for a reason. Changes to the environment are permanent, and it's our job to protect it. My apologies for speaking briefly off topic, but you should know, given the history of previous activities on the property, it likely points to soil contamination from solvents, paint, oil, and possibly battery leakage. The presence of asbestos in that cabin and the existence of an abandoned mine is established. I expect these dangers to the public will be managed and extensive mitigation will be appropriately applied should this project move forward with no requests for variances. Respectfully, I request the board deny this variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Deanne Bitterman?
Deanne Betterman, thank you for listening to all of us. I only have 2 minutes, but 3/4 of it's been repeated already. I've lived here 20 years and I really like this church because I'm very community oriented, and that's a repeat. I'm asking your Board of Adjustment members to approve the building of my church. My dining room table has a lot of people around it often, and I can't wait for us to have a building. It's easy to see that this property is difficult to build on, and I wonder who would have even bought it because it will be very expensive to accommodate the needs. The church plans show that it's backed up against a mountain, so I don't see why a variance wouldn't be so easy to give us, because it doesn't block anyone's view, and the only thing behind it is more of a mountain. The part that I would repeat is just that I'm very community oriented, and my church supports us when we come up with ideas for the people in our town. So I'll skip that over. We have a compulsion to help to be Jesus' hands and feet. And so we're driven toward doing community things, and we need our building. I can't wait to invite all the neighbors around to come and have free lunches and come and see how beautiful it is, and then be invited to participate with us. I would like you to think about the big picture or the broader view. 4,000 more people can fit into our town. And I think you might be in the future also accepting other variances because the rest of our land that's available to build on will also have these same questions for you to decide for us and for several people in the future. We think our whole city is a light on a hill, and that our light shines on a whole bunch of people. And I'm asking you to support us, and I thank you for supporting this asset.
Thank you, Deanne. Sharon Lawsworth?
I'm Sharon Langhart. I've been a resident of Woodland Park for 34 years now. I have spent like a week trying to figure out, if some of you remember last time we were here, Gordon Jackson spent 8 years saying, Sharon, what are you going to do with Gold Hill? And I spent 8 years going, well, and I couldn't figure out why a lot of the great suggestions I had for that Gold Hill didn't work. And today it came to me. One of the, not only do we need to sustain the mountain and the beauty of the corridor, but when you're driving down the mountain and you're driving east and the sun is going down, what are you facing? You're facing a glare of a beautiful building and a church that probably deserves to be built. I don't have any problems with the church, but I think it really needs to be taken into consideration, because all of a sudden it hit me, 8775 was actually lower than what Gordon originally wanted. But it was something that the city said, like, no, wait a minute. We've got the view in the corridor. We've got snow loads, and we have glare. And as you recall, you know, it's a bit, if anybody's ever driven west when the sun goes down, you know exactly what we're talking about. And now we're talking about going east as is, you know, as the sun's going down. So I think it's something, 5 feet. I keep trying to figure out why 5 feet. They knew, the church knew after the last meeting that the criteria that was established was 8775. They were told to go back to the drawing board and then operation, you know. And like you, I have a question about the elevation. A light on the hill, I don't want a light on the hill. I want a mountain on the hill. And one of the final things I have to say is, Gordon said, sometimes the best things to do with a mountain is to do nothing. And thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Do we have anybody zoomed in that has their hand raised?
I had one person who had her hand raised several times, and we'll circle back to her if she raises her hand again. But meanwhile, Ben Stewart, you're allowed to talk. I unmuted you.
Thank you. Hi, it's actually Rachel Stewart. Ben Stewart is sitting next to me. We are neighbours of this property here in Woodland Park. We have been in the area for almost 8 years, and a big part of us moving to this area was that mountain western aesthetic that Victory Life Church talk about and want to maintain. I don't believe that a 42 and 6 inches, 42 feet and 6 inches church maintains that mountain aesthetic. I believe that trees and mountains do. Many Colorado towns do have a similar ordinance that only allow 30 feet or 2 stories. And part of us moving to this wonderful community, that we are also very active in the community, mainly through the high school, was to keep it at that. And I think I agree with, it was kind of hard to hear some of the names. I think it was Kelly, Julie, and Sharon, that by allowing one person 5 feet, what do we allow the next person? And it just creates future issues for both not-profit and for-profit buildings in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Who else do we have on Zoom?
Next, we have Patricia Perry, and you've been unmuted, so please speak.
I'm on low power, so hopefully I won't. I'm Patricia Perry. I'm a resident of Woodland Park for almost 10 years. And one of the things that drew me to this community was the aesthetic. It's absolutely beautiful. And especially the mountains, the hills, and the trees. In addressing this variance, they were absolutely told what the rules were, and then constructed a plan with quite a lot of money and animation, by the way, to violate that code by 5 feet. I object to this. I object to the building. I couldn't help but know that thanks to the animation, which must have cost a fortune, how much of the land is just a parking lot, for God's sakes. The other is, I pass by this all the time. This is not my idea of a mountain aesthetic. I personally think it's ugly. Now, I understand that Victory Life has a lot to do, but excuse me, they bought the land. They knew what it had and what it didn't have. And I feel like they should abide by the rules that were originally constructed, and I object to this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, somebody named Coke, or is listed as Coco. You've been unmuted.
Would you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Jennifer Connors. I live in Woodland Park. We've been here almost 10 years. I just find it interesting that that some of the callers and the people are speaking about 5 feet for a church when Verizon has been approved to put a 60-foot 5G tower at the pool, and y'all are concerned about a church going up from 30 feet to 35 feet when there's a 60-foot 5G tower going by the pool and the high school. Now y'all explain that. Thank you. Goodbye.
Jennifer, I think the explanation, and CJ might be able to help me a bit too, is that we are in the city of Woodland Park, and the city has a city code that establishes certain heights for buildings as well as certain heights for other types of structures. The feeling, of course, is that a building is going to obscure more of the scenery and more view than a cell tower might, I'm sure. And in this case, what we're looking at is a request for a variance to the city code for that building height, which is a separate thing from a tower. In fact, if you look at this, and different cities do it differently from where they measure the height. Some do it from a curb height, some do it from an average grade height, which is what Woodland Park does. Some include the highest part of the structure. The Woodland Park Code here talks about the highest roof point. So, for example, on the proposed structure for the church, we're looking at the peak of the roof. We're not looking, for example, at the height of the chimney. So it's just different ways that the city has set up rules to do it. And I hope I didn't beleaguer that point too much, just to clarify that.
So the next person with their hand raised is Sean Maddox.
What is Sean's last name?
Maddox,
Thank you.
you've been unmuted.
Thank you. One of the main income points for Woodland Park is that we have tourism, obviously. The tourist could go anywhere to look at large churches. What we have is the natural beauty of the area. We have things like 11 Mile, you know, even though it's a little further out. Lots of things in that area. Beyond the variance, which I am opposed to, I'm concerned about how the impact of just building a flat parking lot, building a building site on this is going to affect the aesthetic as you're coming into town. It is definitely going to be very noticeable no matter what they're going to do. And adding 5 feet is just going to add to that. Someone earlier during this already said they believe that there will be other asks for variances. If we're going to keep going and having, well, let's do 5 feet here. Oh, wait, but let's do, you know, this thing that is against a variance, let's ask for this. You know, there's rules for a reason. We have these city codes for a reason, and they should be followed. So I'm against this. And I'm very interested to learn if they're, you know, what the environmental impact statements are going to be, what the usage, water usage is going to be, things like that that are going to affect the area greatly. I live very close to this area. It's already a huge issue dealing with traffic. I also am wondering about a traffic impact study. But beyond that, I do oppose the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And again, I'd encourage you also to bring up some of your concerns regarding water usage impacts and things like that when they get to planning commission and are looking for the authorization to build the church there in the agricultural zone. Anyone else?
Say that one more time, a little louder. So
Is
far,
there
no.
anyone else who would like to make a comment that's zoomed in? And if so, please raise your hand on your Zoom.
There's no takers, sir.
No takers. Okay. Then I'm going to close the public comment portion. Going to ask if before we go into deliberations, if any of our members have any questions that they would like to ask either the public or the applicant or the staff.
I don't know, mine's more of a statement. How's that? These guys are following the rules for asking for a variance. There's very specific criteria that they have to fit to do what they have to fulfill, all the paperwork that they have to do. They were rejected the very first time because it was 15 feet. Okay, so they did make a significant attempt at bringing that down. My point is, and I respect everybody's statements on both sides here, but the ones that y'all brought up, we don't have any control over. Planning Commission does. So the approval to build the church, whichever way, it doesn't change. It still goes to planning, and then it would have to go to city council. So I would encourage all of you that have objections to watch the calendar and attend the planning commission one. If that's the place that that kind of thing can be considered. All we can consider is the request for the 5 feet. It's just a statement.
And I have a question, for the architect and for the applicant. One is roughly, again, let's talk about what would the impact be if you had to go down and maintain the 30-foot in terms of number of seats, and what would the impact be to the church?
I think in general, the programming requirements for the church would be greatly diminished. Just lowering the roof would eliminate the second floor, which would eliminate a third of the seating requirements for the building.
How many, what is the size of your congregation now, and what is the seating capacity that you're looking to have?
I can't speak to the current congregation size. 400 is the current. The seating that we've programmed for is 1,500 seats in the main sanctuary. It's 1,000 on the main level and 500 in the balcony. So we would be effectively eliminating 500 seats by lowering the roof, because we wouldn't have
So
headroom for.
essentially what you're saying is, if we had to stick to the 30-foot level, you're still planning on growth of over 100%. But you'd be limiting your expansion plans by what's roughly equal to your congregation size today. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, except for it is. But I think part of, and again, this is not my thing. I don't really know anything about this particular church. But it sounds like you want to have events. And that's kind of like an event type thing, is where you'd have more people, not necessarily every day. Does that make sense? At least that's my understanding. I could be way off base. But I don't think that really has anything to do with our vote.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that aspect. We go by the programming.
Yeah.
Oh,
basically,
yeah,
for the
I understand.
seats, yeah.
But that, trying to understand what the impact really would be to the church. I know the church does an awful lot for the community and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to see roughly what the impact your planning and your growth is. May have some follow on as we get further in the discussion.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anybody have anything else at the moment?
Yes, one question. Question for you as an architect. The pitch that you have that is reaching the highest point that you have, the limit that you have. Adjusting only the pitch, could you come down 5 feet? Just physically, I'm asking you a physical question, not a design question.
Okay. The answer would be yes.
Okay.
Just from a physical standpoint, yes. From an aesthetic standpoint, it would not keep in line with the desired Mountain Western aesthetic.
I understand that. I'm a center as well. I do see that as a big issue, though.
I think we have some other concerns too. At a shallower slope, we also want to be able to shed water and snow effectively as well. And a shallower slope makes that a little bit more difficult.
There's some materials too.
Of course.
Aesthetically, I wonder what it would look like.
Well,
with a 5 foot lower
So effectively, we have an aesthetic versus,
Well, and I'm wondering, you know, if you came down and didn't have. Could you give us, call up? Which elevation it is, but this one?
Which one? See?
closer to the
No,
screen.
A, you're looking at A? A.
A? And while he's calling that up, yeah, what I was thinking is. If you lowered the peak on that roof. Same slope. But instead of having the span like that, if you chop the span. Where you're going over the top of the balcony and, you know, make it a wing.
Well, you probably should look at C and D. Cause this is front end,
Yeah.
C and D are side. So it's, yeah,
I don't know if that's feasible or not.
well,
Just don't maintain that.
can you
The headroom
go one,
control
CJ?
on the balcony.
That one, see, cause the height is to that's like looking at a depth, if you will, of that roof line.
No, but if I'm looking at that
Yeah,
height,
that's the height. What I'm saying is that whole.
I see what you're saying.
I think effectively, and you know more of your dimensions. Effectively, if you did that, the second peak on the front view would that be like a 5 foot lower? Go back to A, CJ, I'm sorry.
Part of what we've looked at too is structural considerations as well.
Oh, no, I'm just,
Definitely.
but for what Lou was asking about, the second peak. Is that like the 5 foot?
It's
kind of-
roughly 5 feet. yes.
Roughly
Yeah,
5
that's
lower. So,
That was the new roof line that we added actually, because before they used to blend in.
yeah,
Yeah,
And so we separated those two in order to lower everything.
so they could lower.
I mean, we really tried as hard as we could to lower it as much as possible, but then with the functional considerations, structural considerations, and then aesthetic considerations. This is where we arrived at. And then when median grade was calculated, which that's where we really ended up at a lower median grade than what we anticipated, which necessitated the 5 foot variance. We weren't really planning on that originally. Originally, we were planning on holding to 30 feet and working down, but when we went through the calculations with the city on the median grade, that's where we realized we needed the extra 5 feet.
So based on the median grade requirements that the city and your all engineers did, is what's created the variance, is what you're saying, then you could not go down based on median grade an additional 5 feet and maintain the 30 feet is what you're saying.
Correct. We originally started with the premise of working at 30 feet and working down. Our previous application had a median grade of 12.5 feet, but what happened when we created the life safety improvement to create the fire access on the back of the building, we actually hurt ourselves in our median grade by doing that. It lowered our median grade and effectively necessitated the height increase that we are requesting today.
Now, when you're doing you're saying this new access for life safety and things like that, were you working with the current fire department here and evaluating that also with them?
Yeah, we met with Tyler Lambert and discussed fire access around the building. That was part of the considerations and also the grade that the fire trucks need to effectively get around the back. We couldn't have a steep, really steep grade. We wanted to try to keep it shallow, so they had proper access.
Yeah. Could I ask you from your presentation to put back the view from the highway?
Oh. It's a test, CJ.
He has.
I think that was in your architect's.
Yeah, I'm pulling up that one, right?
Oh, okay.
CJ controls
And
everything.
while he's pulling that up, I want, everybody has in front of you the checklist. And I'll just read that again, because this is what we have to assess.
Yes.
First off is have they demonstrated a hardship? Either exceptional narrowness, shape, topography, or some other conditions.
Yeah, keep going.
Have they submitted the application properly that identifies the hardship that they face? And that whether the literal interpretation of the code would deprive them of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zone, in that agricultural zone. And if granted, would they get special privileges that are denied other lands and structures in that zone?
Unfortunately, we don't have anything to compare that to, so.
That's right. Well, we'll talk about that. And then just make sure that what they represented is valid, the variance is justified and makes reasonable use of the land or the structure, and the variance will be in harmony with the intent of the comprehensive plan and not injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental, as far as we can tell. So that's what we're looking at. I'm going to close the rest of the meeting and now we'll deliberate. If we have any questions, we will ask you. But otherwise, please let us talk amongst ourselves without any interruptions. And the picture that I was looking for was the one that also showed the proposed building from the same view.
Yeah, this is a little video that they put together here, so it's changing right now.
Yeah, stop right there. That's good. Okay, so now we will go into our deliberations. And it seems to me that what we're looking at is a 5-foot variation from the code. We're looking from that view from the grade level of the building, it's still a 42-foot building. If it were 37 foot, we wouldn't be here today.
But it was 55.
I don't care what it was.
I don't, I'm
This
just
is-
saying,
this
it
is
is,
where we-
it is different.
Where we are. And I guess the concern I have is while they're talking about events and they're talking about wanting to be able to, particularly in their main auditorium, house 1,500 people when you got a congregation that's less than half that right now. That I don't know that is a reasonable thing, or that they would be handicapped if they even had to cut that by a third.
I understand what you're saying. The question. Well, it's 500 deductible, the 1,000 on the main level. That's if I remember that properly.
Yeah.
1,000 people. Okay, can't think of the right way to say this, sorry. Somebody else jump in as soon as it comes back into my old head, I'll just pop right out. Go ahead.
I'll just say, to get to that height, there was a requirement from the client, basically.
Right,
There's a
right, right.
requirement from the client, which is causing the problem.
Yes.
From what I see. And it could be fixed. It could be fixed to comply. Yes, it doesn't meet what they would like to have for the number of people in the building, and all that, I understand that. But it could be, there could be more compromise on the side of the organization in their requirements to the architect.
In that, yes,
Yes, they
from
could have.
an architectural. and-
Same thing with just the pitch of the roof, which is why I asked what I did. I agree completely with the aesthetics that with why they're doing that, but that, again, that goes over. You know, it could all have been pulled back if client had
Well, you don't
let them pull back.
But you don't necessarily want to change the pitch. Because you don't want to make it get, it would make it flatter. And that is
Okay,
not a
so
good
if you-
idea.
I know, but it's a more complicated thing than that. If you want to keep the pitch or the various stated, you adjust the number of people.
Well, yeah, I think
That's
what
your
it
point.
comes down to is on the one hand, from an aesthetic standpoint, architecturally, the architects are saying that they really were hoping to not have to come here tonight.
Of course.
Okay, but they felt aesthetically, this is the best they could do to meet their customer, the church's requirement.
I got the impression, and I could be wrong, that there were structural issues associated with doing it the other way also, that it didn't sound like, to me, it was just people. Yes, there was a desire for that. But structurally, I thought there was an issue.
Well, I think structurally, your desire here is what they would have to do structurally and aesthetically. What you're saying.
Well,
To satisfy the requirement to seat 1,500 people.
Well, I was thinking from the same one, it wasn't just pretty, it was much more difficult to do that. To do that lowering, even now, I could be way off base, but that was the impression I got.
Let's see, structurally, it's 512 pitch.
Right.
So that they would have
Well, you got snow sloughing and all.
snow stuffing and things like that. Secondly, trying to maintain the redo of the building, and actually they've stretched it out. And then the third thing is when they were hoping by median grade, working with the city,
right,
talking with the fire department, they couldn't get that extra 5 feet that they needed to pull everything down. So that's where we're at right now. We have the three aspects that have brought us here to the variance meeting. I see where they tried everything that they could for this variance to not be here. But the main thing was keeping the median grade according to what they worked with the city and with, local fire department for life safety, access, trucks coming up the hill, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. But the driver, structurally, you're where you are, okay? But the driver is the requirement or the desirement for 1,500 capacity.
That's the driver.
And that's what it comes down to. Is it worth? It might be to talk about what drove them to that to see whether there is is it a realistic goal? Again, I'm looking at this thing that says, does this give them special privileges that might otherwise be denied to someone else that wants to build something in that area? And the special privilege to me is the desirement to support 1,500 people in an event versus 1,000 people.
Well, except we only have, I mean, it's like those two little parks that are in that district, in an AG district that's in the city, so it's. You don't really have anything to say somebody's. How do I say, there's no other things in that same,
No precedence.
there's no other,
precedent.
right,
But if somebody, and again.
and we don't
thinking
have
that-
other
thinking that
AG.
Right now, this is an allowable use
It is.
with special approval. That this is an agricultural district, is it reasonable to want to have an enclosed event in an agricultural district that has 1,500 people? I mean, and that's why I would ask,
Yeah.
it would help me to ask the question of the church, of the applicant. Give me some better idea, aside from the fact that you'd lose 500 people. What does this mean to you?
So thank you for working late. My name is Brian Norman. I'm the campus pastor here at Victory Life Church. To answer your question, the church has grown exponentially each of the last 3 years since COVID ended or began to wane. We see that growth continuing, over 100 people every single year that we've grown. At one point 3 years ago, we had 50 people, and now we're over 400 people. We expect that growth to continue with a Bible college right across the street. Their expansion plans meet our expansion plans. And we've been in this community for, this is our 9th year in this community. We're not a new church here. And we just expect a lot of growth. We will have events like the marriage conference that was mentioned earlier that would seat people from all over the community, and it could be well over 1,500 people that would be in our church at any given time. So hope that answers your question.
It helps.
All
It
right,
helps.
thank you.
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
You're stuck now.
You're stuck now. You've got a facility in Oklahoma?
We have 9 other facilities in the southern United States.
Okay.
This is the only one in Colorado.
From your growth potential, from your activities across the board, does the kind of growth that you're talking about and draw, okay, I'm not, for events, line up, or is it similar to what you've experienced in the other facilities?
Absolutely. We have an event in Oklahoma called Jubilee, and in a church that seats probably 1,000 people. That event brings in every year about 4,000 people. We've tried to rent other facilities. We've done that unsuccessfully and had to go back to the church to meet our needs there at the church. But absolutely, and there's multiple events like that every single year that we would like to do for the community.
Thank you. That addresses what I was
Thank you.
asking about. Thank you.
I have no further questions.
Just, I know that one of the speakers had talked about the 8775. They are not violating the 8775.
Right.
So just
So it's what, 8,700?
Anything else to say?
Okay. Do we want to have a motion? Yeah, we have to vote. And again, it's gotta be unanimous.
Well, I would like to make a motion that variance 2023-08 for Victory Life Church Heights variance. Request by Seth Emerson of Kingdom Design Group applicant and Legacy Title Holding Company property owner for 5-foot height variance from 30 feet required by municipal code 18.17.030 to 35 feet to accommodate one-story church building for Victory Life Church. The subject property is located north of the intersection of Highway 24 and Trout Creek Road in sections 23, 26, 12 T12S R69W of the 6th PM, also known as Gold Mountain, 5955 Trout Road in the agricultural zone district. I move that we accept that variance.
Because, just so we go on record saying that it represents the representations and the application were valid. The variance is justified, that it'll make reasonable use of the land and structure, that it's in harmony and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. That should be part of that.
All right.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
We have a first and a second. The motion on the table is to approve the 5-foot variance. Kevin O'Neill,
Approved.
Valerie Lundy,
Approved.
Jim Rumsey,
Approved.
Louis Ramon.
Approved. Okay, the motion has been made and approved unanimously. The variance was approved for anybody. I think the commentary that we heard, the concerns about water usage, the concerns about safety and exiting and how they would handle
It's real.
1,500 or more participants is something I think that needs to be addressed when this goes to the planning commission.
Yes, I agree.
It's just not
So,
something that
I
we have
encourage
any
you guys to
control over.
please speak up. Hey, thank you very much, everybody that came and spoke and people that zoomed in. The interest and that you came out on a cold night and passed up Monday Night Football. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, let's go on with the other items that we have. Do we have any reports?
Just to note that your next meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 18th at 6:30.
Okay, and I have one other thing for you guys to be thinking about. I'll make my usual plea. And that is, please, we need to get some alternates. We really, really do. So go look at your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, and people that you think that would be an asset to the board. Please encourage them to go to the website, fill out an application. The other thing, looking beyond the December meeting, is at our first meeting next year. Again, we will be looking at a chairman and a vice chairman. Please give that consideration. He says.
Praying.
So that's all I have. If there is nothing else, again, thank you guys very much. Good presentations, good meeting. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. And the meeting is adjourned at 8:14.
Oops.